Open our Bibles this evening to the book of Esther, chapter 7. We'll begin reading with verse 6 and read down through verse 10. And Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine, in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden unto the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed, or what we today would call a couch. He was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, "Will he force the queen also before me in the house?" As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, "Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who hath spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman." It is, the gallows stood there. Then the king said, "Hang him thereon." So they took Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. We've waited a long time to get to this point. Imagine Mordecai, Esther, and the whole nation of Jews who for perhaps months had thought for sure they were going to be killed by Haman's wicked plot. Waiting for probably months must have seemed like years. Waiting, wondering, what's going to happen? Will we all die? Will God intervene? Or are we all just going to be murdered and Haman wins? We saw that Esther had put her life on the line to dare to enter into the king's chambers with nothing but faith in God that she would be accepted. She had gotten the king's curiosity up. "Honey, what do you want that you risk your life? I want you and Haman to come to dinner tonight at my house." They go that night, and the king says, "Honey, what is so important that you risk your life for?" And she said, "I want you and Haman to come to dinner tomorrow night, and then I will tell you what my request is." Now the king and Haman are there, and the king asked yet again, "Honey, what is so important that you risk your life to ask me?" And so Esther now has to deal with the problem head on. And I'll have more to say about that, but the time has come. She can no longer stall. She can no longer make excuses. The time has come that she must act. As I thought of this, I thought of quite a few scriptures, but one that immediately came to mind is found in Psalms chapter 30 and verse 5. I suggest you write that down and memorize it if you can. It goes like this: weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Sometimes things look very black. Sometimes things look very hopeless. Sometimes we don't see any way out of a situation. And it may bring tears. Weeping may endure for the night. But rest assured, joy will come ultimately. Many Christians have faced untold trials and tribulations over the years. Only God knows how many Christians have gone to bed weeping and crying because of circumstances, because of problems, because of trials, because of something that is a very real threat. And they can't find peace. Many Christians have cried themselves to sleep over things that are going on beyond their control. Problems may bring weeping. But joy cometh in the morning. Many Christians have felt anxiety and fear over what the future may hold. Will we all get killed? Will God allow every Jew to be massacred? Many Christians only see gloom and doom in all circumstances. Now, I tend, most of the time, I tend to be the optimist. You know, that's part of my makeup. That's not my makeup, but that's part of my who I am. But a lot of Christians see the decree, Haman is going to kill us, and that's all they see is the gloom and doom in life's circumstances. Many Christians actually die before they see the answer to their prayers. Not everybody lives to see the answer like Esther did. Many do die and never see the answer to their prayer. But one thing we can rest assured, either in this life or for certain in the next life, God, the righteous judge, is going to judge those who have afflicted us, those who have tortured us. God will judge in perfect righteousness and deal with those who have caused so much grief in our Christian life. This is true of those who hate and kill the Jews. You know, of all people on earth, the Jews have been the most hated people of any nation on earth. We were discussing this morning the Holocaust, and millions and millions and millions of Jews were killed by Hitler and his gang of thugs. But God is still on the throne. And one of these days, God will judge every one of those. That's also true for you and I. God chose the nation of Israel. They are His covenant people. But God also chose us. Just as God chose Israel in the Old Testament, God has chosen us in the New Testament. And in Luke 18, verse 7, shall not God avenge His own elect, which cry day and night unto Him, though He bear long with them? God has always watched over the Jews, and God has always watched over His own elect. Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes, though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged. Well, I don't understand why God doesn't do something to them. I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, but it shall not be well with the wicked. God may prolong their days, but just as He chose Israel, He chose us, and just as He has avenged Israel throughout history, He will eventually, it shall not be well with the wicked. Now, with all of that, let's look at the lesson tonight. In verses 5 and 6, we see Esther identifying the enemy. Queen had told the king in our last lesson, somebody is trying to kill me, my family, and all of the Jews. And we left it there when the king asked, who dare lay his hand on the queen and her family and her people? That's where we left it in our last lesson. In verse 5, the king said, who is he and where is he that dost presume in his heart to do so? Now it's time for Esther to speak up. Now is the time to confront Haman. After all, he's sitting right there in front of her. What is she going to do? Without missing a beat, the king said, who is he and where is he? And she turns around and says, the adversary and the enemy is none other than wicked Haman sitting right there. Now, I can tell you, most of you have never been in this situation. I have in almost every church I've ever pastored, I've had to do this at least once, twice. We had a family in the first church I pastored. Everything we brought up, they were against it. When he prayed, instead of saying, Lord, bless our church, he would pray, Lord, keep our church little. And there were many other things. And finally it got to a point where I had to say, if you want our church to grow, and if you want God to save people, and you want our church to grow, stand up. Everybody stood up except this man and his wife. And I had to say, folks, look around. Look who is still sitting. These are the folks that are holding our church back. Was I scared? Scared to death. Was I nervous? I was shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. Had to do that in Ohio. Had to do it in Texas. But when you're standing or sitting, and the person that is trying their best to get rid of you, trying their best to stop you, trying their best to keep the church from going forward, and they're sitting right there, whether it's Indiana, whether it's Ohio, whether it's Texas, and you're standing there, and you have to look and say, you and your wife are the two that are holding our church back. I can imagine how Esther must have felt. I can imagine how she must have wondered, do I have the strength to do this? Can I face Haman face to face and point at him and say, you are the enemy and adversary. You are wicked. Could she do it? Or would she lose her nerve? Esther stood strong. Without hesitation, she said, he's the adversary, he's the enemy, and he is wicked. Now, as I was thinking, problem today in society as well as in many churches, nobody wants to get involved. I was thinking of the Good Samaritan. A man had gone from Jerusalem and was going out, and he had to go through a section of country where it was well known that thieves and robbers hid in that section, and when somebody went through, they would frequently come out from hiding, attack the individual, rob them blind, and in the case of that man, they beat him up and left him for dead. Here comes the Good Samaritan. He knew, everybody knew, in this section of town, there are thieves and robbers who will attack you, beat you up, rob you, and kill you. So when you get to that area, You want to put the pedal to the metal and get through there as fast as you can. But the Samaritan, knowing the thieves were hiding, knowing they had beat this man up, knowing they had just prior robbed this man and left him for dead, he stopped, went down to where the man was, poured in the oil and the wine, bound up his wounds, put him on his donkey, and carried him to the closest, started to say hospital, but it was actually an inn, and said, "Here, take care of him. I will pay the medical bill, and if this isn't enough, I will pay the rest when I come back through." Suppose the Good Samaritan had said, "Oh, I could be the next victim. They could come out and rob me. They could beat me up. Hey, sorry about you, but I got to think of number one, which is me. I would love to help you, but I can't afford to be beat up myself and left for dead. I can appreciate your situation, but I got to think about me first." That attitude has filled our society, and it's filled many churches. Let's bring it down to 2025. If I help that person, I could end up killed. I told you, it's been a year or two ago, downtown New York City, there was a lady who was attacked by some gang people. They stripped her. They put her down on the sidewalk. They raped her right there on the sidewalk. Hundreds of people walked by, and not one single person stopped to help that lady who was being raped right on the sidewalk, downtown New York. People walked by and just kept on walking because I might get hurt. A gang does something, and the police arrest them, and you're the eyewitness. You saw it. You know exactly what you saw. You make a positive identification, and the police say, "Now, you know you have to testify in court." "Oh, no, 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 no. If I testify, the gang will know who I am. They might follow me home. They might attack me. I can't afford to get involved." You could get caught in the crossfire. That innocent-looking, stranded motorist may have friends hiding in the woods. And when you pull over to help, they could jump out of the woods and attack you. So, you know what? I'm sorry your car broke down, but I can't afford to get involved because I can't risk me getting hurt. Did you know criminals by the hundreds have gotten off scot-free because nobody would stand up and say, there is the man. There he is. Esther said, somebody has got to expose Haman. And since I'm the only one here, I'm the only one that can, I don't know what Haman's going to do. He may grab a sword and cut off my head. Haman may pick up a chair and smash it over my head. I don't know what Haman is going to do, but I know that he has to be exposed for what he is. Without Esther being willing to confront Haman and point him out as the bad guy, Mordecai would have been killed, Esther would have been killed, and all the Jews would have been killed. It was necessary that Esther point out Haman as the enemy, the adversary, and as a wicked person. Now, what if the king didn't believe her? Oh, Esther, you're making that up. Oh, honey, come on. I've known Haman for half my life. Haman would not do that. You need to stop lying about Haman. She didn't know what the king was going to do. When she pointed at Haman and said the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman, she didn't know what Haman was going to do, nor did she know what the king was going to do. But she knew she had to at least expose Haman. After that, whatever happens, happens. I've done my part. I've exposed him. If the king doesn't believe me, at least I've done my part. If Haman picks up a chair and starts smashing it, at least I did my part. Now, notice in verse 7 and 8, the reactions. In verse 7, the king got mad. The word wrath is not just, oh, that irritates me. It is a consuming anger. Who was he mad at? Was he mad at Esther for exposing his second-hand man? Was he angry at his own ignorance, his own gullibility? Was he angry at himself for being deceived by Haman? All we know for certain is he got angry and he left the room, went outside into the palace garden. He needed to think. He needed to get his mind wrapped around this situation. Esther had caught him completely off guard. So he's got to get his mind together and think, okay, how could I have been so ignorant? How could I have been so blind? And then, what am I going to do about it now? So he went outside. Now, and there are several different approaches to Haman in this. Verse 7 said that Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen. He was smart enough to read the handwriting on the wall, and he knew that Esther had it out for him. He knew that evil was determined against him. And so he decides to plead his case before Esther the queen. Now, it says that when the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, Haman was fallen upon the bed, not a bed like we sleep in, but in that day it would be similar to a couch today. Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Either Haman was the most unlucky guy in the world, he was a klutzo, or he was just plain stupid. The idea seems to be that he stood up intending to bow down before Esther and plead for mercy. That seems to be what he was planning to do, was get down on his face before Esther and plead for mercy. But it says that he fell upon the bed. Now, there are a couple of ideas. I like the majority opinion because the majority opinion agrees with me, which means they're probably right. He gets up, goes toward Esther. I'm watching. He goes toward Esther. I said, I'm watching. I know. She's scared to death I'm going to fall off one of these days. But as he's going to fall down on his face and pleads for mercy, he somehow trips and falls on the couch where she is. And the king walks in at that exact moment. And here Haman is, fallen on top of Esther, tripped, whatever. He tripped, he fell, he's on top of Esther as she's on the couch. And the king comes in, sees him on top of Esther on the couch, and he says, "What? Are you going to rape the queen in my very presence, in her own house? Are you going to rape the queen right here in front of me?" Now, obviously, common sense would say Haman wasn't that stupid. But the king said, you walk in, there he's laying on top of your wife on the couch. The king said, "What do you think you're doing?" And the servants that were there, you see, even insulting the queen was a capital offense. And so when he said, "Are you trying to rape my wife in my own house?" the servants knew that was an immediate death penalty. And so they covered his head, because at that point Haman was no longer fit to be seen in public. Even now, I'm told, I've never seen it, but I'm told that in many states, when they are executing someone, they will cover their head before they execute them. So when the king said what he said, they knew Haman was condemned, and so they went over and covered his head, meaning he is a marked man for death. Now, and I love to see God's hand working. The king comes in, accuses Haman. The servants cover his head, and at that precise moment, Harbona, one of the chamberlains of the king, come in and said, "Oh, by the way, we just finished building the gallows that Haman built to hang Mordecai on. By the way, King, Mordecai has only done you good." That tells me that Haman was not liked by a lot of people, because Harbona immediately pointed out Mordecai has only done good for the king. And Haman had a gallows built 75 feet tall to hang Mordecai on. King, what do you think we should do with the gallows? Now, either this was perfect timing, or Harbona saw an opportunity to get back at Haman, because nobody likes people like Haman. Nobody likes him. And so the king says, "Oh, he built a gallows?" "Yes, sir, 75 feet. It's in his own front yard." The king said, "Hang him on his own gallows." And so they took Haman out, hung him on his own gallows. And the Bible said the king's wrath was pacified. His wrath was subdued. The danger's over. Esther can relax now. Haman's dead. The danger's over. Oh, wait. No, it isn't. And that takes us into chapter 8. But I thought about us. And the Bible is full of admonitions. I picked out 2, and I think these will make the point. Psalms 37, verse 1 and 2. The psalmist wrote, "Fret not thyself because of evildoers." Don't let evildoers upset you. "Neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity." In verse 2, "For they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb." Proverbs 24, "Fret not thyself because of evil men, neither be thou envious of the wicked." There's some evil, wicked people in this world. Don't let them cause you to fret. Fret not thyself. And if you look up just the word fret not, well, 2 words. If you look up fret not, you'll find it in the Bible many, many, many times. As Christians, don't let evil people cause you to lose your joy. Their day is coming. You may not live to see it, but you can die in hope that someday God will take care of all of the Hamans on earth. What does the future hold? Well, we saw tonight Esther's life is spared. Mordecai's life is spared. But the decree is still out there to kill all the Jews. Esther is safe. Mordecai is safe. She exposed Haman, but now she's got to come up with a way to save millions of Jews throughout the country. Are you willing to stand, even if it means putting yourself at risk? Are you willing to expose evil? And don't let evildoers cause you to become so upset that you lose your joy and your peace and your happiness as a child of God.